YouTube. Should grab the chat. Activate. Find and activate. Oh, we did it right. Good. Okay, all of these. Okay. All three chats are live. Now, let's do the stream info. Just chatting, just chatting. Change that. This one. Down here. Down here. I'm getting a dropped frames. Connectivity? Oh no, we're back. I have no idea what that is. Streaming. So we'll take it as there's no problems. Let me just make sure all the sound works before I move on. There's input sound. Now I need desktop sound.
This is where we are. Listen, halfway through the two.
Okay, everything works. Let's have a look. Days am I looking back? Stream Friday, so I want the last 3 days. Can you give me the news for the past 3 days? All right. Oh, I made changes to see if it can actually. It still doesn't. It doesn't give me a link. Ugh. Straight. Lost it. I've lost it here. Project. Okay. News. Video of the subject matter where possible. Maybe it's the trusted sources thing that it just. Give it less options for the next time. Hopefully that'll figure itself out. Okay. Let's have a look at the Canadian stories here first. Quebec selects new premier as CAQ leadership race continues. Quebec's coalition Aver Quebec CAQ leadership race ended with either Christine Brechete or another candidate set to become the new premier on April 12th, marking a leadership transition amid ongoing provincial government challenges. Hey, somebody said something. Huh, maybe. Into that after this. So CAQ, X Coalition. Is that the party that has seats? Let's open another AI so that thinking of it. What is it called? CAQ. Is the CAQ party in Quebec the same one that has seats in the House of Commons? Coalition Iron Quebec. Because I don't, that's not the name I recognize them as. Why it matters. The change could reshape Quebec's policies on key issues like immigration, language, and federal relations, influencing national dynamics. No, it's strictly a provincial party. Okay, so this is at a provincial level. Does not have any seats in the federal, so this is not the federal party I'm thinking of. Canada, provincial, federal. Okay, why care about that? Is this something I have to look deeper into? Probably not right now. Okay, let's have a look at this. Alberta separatist referendum petition faces legal challenges from First Nations. The Blood Tribe and other First Nations pursued an injunction against Alberta's separatist referendum petition drive, citing threats to treaty rights. Court delayed signature verifications pending the outcome of the April hearing. Disputes highlight tension over Alberta's independence effort, politically affecting provincial unity, Indigenous rights, and national cohesion. Implications for resource-rich Alberta. What percentage of the Albertans support separation? From my understanding, like the number is still quite low. So they're having these referendums and stuff to kind of get a feel for it, but yeah, okay. According to the most recent polling data from early Alberta, separation typically fluctuates between 26-31%. So still low. You need significantly more than that if you're gonna actually separate. Um, but it's higher than I thought it was. Like I thought the numbers were lower. Well, those numbers represent Albertans who might consider or lean towards independence. Data reveals a much more nuanced picture when looking at the levels of commitment. Okay, here we go. Opposed to separation, support for separation. Are far more still on the opposed side. Like, I don't think it's gonna happen, but like, I got no problems with the conversation around separation because like getting more power for our provincial government to actually do things for Albertans, I think is good. And looking at considering options, I think is always important. Even though, like, I would personally never support separation. But I mean, try and make a good case for it, I guess. Okay. So it looks like it's hitting legal issues. First Nation. Okay. That's still there's some kind of yeah, the referendum they're putting out. From what I understood, I didn't think separation was one of the questions. Questions were all, would you support the provincial government in doing this? And it was basically giving the provincial government more power in immigration or giving it more power in funding rather than um, the federal government having that power. Anyway, that one's still a ways off. Let's continue. Canada reaches 2% NATO defense spending target. Canada officially met. I think we've seen this one. Like this has been there for a little bit. What's the new goal? Like they're thinking like trying to push for 5% now. I don't know if that'll happen. Like what is it? The US spends 3.5% of their GDP on defense or offense, military spending. Um Still significantly higher than 2. So I mean pushing more defense spending, I think spending's tough. Because unless you're like the US and you can like get geopolitical gains from having a large military, then it's kind of like just money thrown into a burning pit. You could spend that on infrastructure instead, and that actually gives you something that can help do stuff for your country. But you need a military. You do. I don't know if I'd support the 5% goal or let's see. I guess I can just ask, right? Does NATO have a new 5% spending goal? Where did I hear that? See if I can figure that out. Investigating NATO spending. I put it on thinking mode. Take a second. Yeah, so like I personally wouldn't don't think we should push for like a 5%, but like 3.5 matching US GDP spending on defense. I think that would probably be a good goal. Yeah, sure. NATO officially established a new 5% spending goal during the 2025 summit in The Hague last summer. So then even the US isn't there at the new goal. Maybe that's why they're getting mad at NATO. You know, they don't want to bump their spending up. This represents a massive shift from the two. Yeah. What actually means? Okay, here we go. The new target is technically called the Hague Investment Plan. It is more nuanced than the old flat 2% metric. Okay. It breaks down into 2 specific categories to be reached by 2035. 3.5% for core defense. So that's probably what I was reading about when I saw the US numbers. They were like 3.5 to 3.7, I believe. This covers traditional military spending, troop day. Yeah. 1.5 for resilience and innovation. Okay. So this wouldn't show up on standard defense spending. So when Canada's reached 2%, it's 2% for core defense. 1.5% for resilience and innovation. This is new security related categories. Allies can count spending on protecting critical infrastructure like pipelines or cables, cyber defense, and strengthening the domestic defense industry based towards this portion. There is also an intermediately milestone where allies are expected to reach 3.5% of GDP by 2029. Are any countries currently meeting the 5% goal? How much is Canada spending on core defense and how much is it spending on resilience and innovation right now? What else did it say about it here? Just that we've reached the 2% NATO defense spending target. Why it matters, the strength of Canada's position in Atlantic security alliances amid global tensions, including responses to conflicts like the US-Iran situation. Okay. No countries have officially hit the 5% mark yet, but a few are getting remarkably close. The 5% target, known as the Hague Investment Plan, was only established in the summer of 2025 with the federal deadline of 2035. So like that's 10 years. Who's leading the pack? Well, no one is at 5% yet. Eastern flank countries are the most aggressive. Poland spending roughly 4.7, the Baltic states, okay. United States currently sits around 3.4 to 3.5. Oh, well, the US has the largest budget in raw dollars. It actually has to increase its spending as a percentage of GDP to meet the new NATO goal. Okay, so when I read that, that was including core defense, resilience, and innovation together. Okay, let's have a look. Canada's current spending. Canada has made a massive jump in the last year. Prime Minister Mark Carney announced that Canada has officially reached the 2% GDP benchmark for the first time in decades under the new NATO goal. Split here is where Canada's now. Core defense, about 1.8 to 1.9% of GDP. The vast majority of Canada's current spending goes towards core defense, salary, existing, the massive 9.3 billion infusion announced last year for equipment and readiness. Resilience and innovation, 0.1 to 0.2% of GDP. This is the newer category where Canada is just starting to ramp up. The government recently launched the Defense Industry Strategy to focus on this area. Recent down payments on this 1.5% goal include, okay. So all of ours is core defense, right? Okay. So we're ramping up defense spending. There's several wars in the world right now. Probably a good idea. All right. U.S. stories. U.S. and Iran agreed to a 2-week ceasefire. Strait of Hormuz temporarily reopened. What? It hasn't reopened, has it? Can we find a better one? Ooh. Is the U.S. blockade Trump's riskiest move yet? I want to know. So, from what I understand, there were negotiations that went on over the weekend. Nothing changed. And when they come back from negotiation, now Trump is blockading the Strait of Hormuz.
So
Let's hear about this.
Iran blocked 20% of the world's oil trade by threatening to blow up oil tankers that dare transit through the Strait of Hormuz. So, the US just responded over the weekend by announcing its own blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. At which point,
So then, was Iran still transporting their oil to throughout the war? Has Iran been transporting their oil to market throughout the war? Despite the intense conflict and the effective closure of the Strait of Hormuz in early 2026, Iran has been remarkably successful at keeping its oil moving to the market. So they're still getting money for their oil while in a protracted conflict with the US. While the 2026 Iran war has caused the largest disruption in global oil history, Iran export machinery has proved structurally resilient through a combination of dark fleet tactics and a near total reliance on the Chinese market. As of mid-April 2026, Iranian oil exports remain surprisingly active. So they're not only transporting their oil to market, they're getting the inflated prices for it too. Like if anything, this means they got more money coming in, right? Okay.
One way to look at that is the way this writer at the New York Post sees it. A brilliant call, like saying, you block the strait, I block your block. Now, there may be two ways of looking at this, as the Jerusalem Post put it. Is this 3D chess or grasping at straws?
I block your
Grasping,
block.
because this war has now dragged on
I counter your counter spell.
for a month and a half. And peace talks, the vice president's most recent attempt in Pakistan to end the war,
Okay, I heard about
they
this.
seem to have gone nowhere.
So we go back to the United States having not come to an agreement.
But let me offer a third way of looking at this, which is that this new US blockade represents an escalation in the war of a very different sort than we've seen so far. That it injects a new kind of risk, more than one, actually. And we can understand that risk by starting with what a blockade would actually look like.
Okay, so if you're blockading Iran, does that mean, like, clearly you're stopping them from exporting their oil? Are you then, like, occupying their tankers that are exporting oil? Because odds are, like, wouldn't these be like Chinese tankers? A lot of countries, like, their tankers aren't like flagged and operating in a specific country. They'll have different flags. They'll have crews from like somewhere in Asia, because that's just where labor is cheaper. So you would have to blockade everything. I guess they're stopping everything that isn't their own oil from getting through anyway, right? Pretty much anything that gets through, you could pretty much say is carrying Iranian oil. Blockade a blockade.
So step one to understanding what a US blockade of the Strait of Hormuz looks like is sorting through Trump's own contradictions about it. Peace talks between the US and Iran collapsed over the weekend, with Trump's VP saying this about Iran.
The simple fact is that we need to see an affirmative commitment that they will not seek a nuclear weapon, not just now, not just 2 years from now, but for the long term. We haven't seen that yet. We hope that we will.
Now, Trump expands on this news by saying, so there you have it, the meeting went well, most points were agreed to, but the only point that really mattered, nuclear, was not. Effective immediately, the United States Navy, the finest in the world, will begin the process of blockading any and all ships trying to enter or leave the Strait of Hormuz.
Like, wouldn't you blockade their when you started a war? Am I missing something here? Like, allowing them to profit from the war seems like a bad idea. I get in war, you don't want to hit civilian infrastructure. You want to avoid that, but stopping their exports, that just seems like step one. it's the first thing they did to the countries around them when they got the chance, right? They shut the strait down.
Now, at first blush, this didn't really make any sense, because if Trump's most urgent goal has been to reopen the strait, why block, quote, any and all ships trying to enter or leave the Strait of Hormuz? It's like the geopolitical equivalent of telling your boss, you can't fire me because I quit. You can't. It's like the geopolitical equivalent of telling you or leave the Strait.
Again. Is this, so this is what it actually looks like? So Google, Google Maps the Strait of Hormuz. Can I get not this view, but like a satellite image view? Or ooh, layers. I don't think I'm going to get an image like that. I don't know if that's real or not. Because if that's real, you can literally see the paths where large tankers could travel.
Strait of Hormuz. It's like the geopolitical equivalent of telling your boss, you can't fire me because I quit, which is fine, but it doesn't get your job back. So thankfully, the next day, we got this clarification. The United States to blockade ships entering or exiting Iranian ports on April 13th at 10 a.m. Eastern. And U.S. Central Command would confirm.
April 13th. Today. The blockade starts
A
today.
blockade of all maritime traffic entering and exiting Iranian ports. And
like a blockade is something that is a long-term measure. You're not going to see the effects of a blockade in a week. It's going to take months before you see an effect of a blockade like this, which at least shows to me that they're appearing to enter into a longer scale war. They're prepping for this to last longer. They went to have negotiations to see if they could get a peace deal. They could not. Now they're ramping up for what may be a protracted war.
including all Iranian ports.
Which means, do I still have that saved? How are our oil prices doing? I mean, after that dip, they've kind of just been going bold and steady at just under $100 a barrel. The world doesn't know how, I mean, the oil futures don't know how to deal with it yet. There's clearly still some hope that this ends quickly.
On the Arabian Gulf and Gulf of Oman. So, okay, the US isn't blocking Saudi tankers exporting their oil to China. It's specifically choking off Iran's ports, which is effectively telling them
what did I miss? They're only choking off Iran.
Saudi tankers exporting their oil to China. It's specifically choking off Iran's ports, which is effectively telling them, if you block the world's oil, we block yours. But do you know how many ports Iran has? The country has almost 2,000 kilometers of coastline leading to the Arabian Sea, which means a blockade of
all their oil See this? All their oil is like up in here. Like this section of the world is blessed with oil. Kuwait has all their oil here. Qatar has their gas. Saudi Arabia has all their oil up here. All of the oil funnels into this area and then comes out here. Like Karg Island is their oil their oil storage place because all their oil is up here. So if you're like blockading something, you don't have to blockade an entire coastline. Like you're not going to have oil tankers filling up down here. It's only going to happen up here. Let's see what he says.
which means a blockade of Iran's ports doesn't just mean sealing the Strait of Hormuz.
From my understanding, U.S. ships are not approaching Iran. Like their aircraft carriers and fleets are still like 1,000 kilometers away, way out into the ocean. So, like, are you tracking them with satellites then? And then intercepting them once they is that the goal? I mean, if you can do that, you should have been doing that already.
It means preventing ship access here. I count 5 ports
Okay.
just in this 20-kilometer span. It also means blocking ships coming out of this bay. I see ports with boats here, here,
So
here,
they're talking
here.
They're talking about all boats. So this is not a blockade on just oil. This is a blockade of exports through the ocean in its entirety. Okay, so then you do have to block off all of it.
Here, here. And you know what you'll find as you head even further east? Yeah, more ports.
And so the question is, how many ships are actually going to leave Iranian ports? Are the US forces going to be able to track them? All of these are, I mean, no pun intended, but, uncharted waters.
So the first challenge is building the wall. Not so hard when you're just blockading one port, even 2. You can choke off near or, let's say, far. But as you widen the area you're blockading, you have to keep making that net wider and wider, or else you risk creating.
And as I said, their boats are not actually like the US military, US Navy, not actually getting that close to Iran.
Weaknesses where ships can slip through.
But do you risk that? Like, we see this with the exact what Iran is doing, like the threat of attacking a ship that's going through the Strait of Hormuz. Like, the threat alone has completely shut off shipping. Like, threat alone will stop most export. As long as you go out and get some of the ships, then nobody's going to take that risk. I mean, like, I don't even know if this is a good idea. Like, shutting down their oil exports, I don't know why they weren't doing that in the beginning. But, like, most imports and exports are just like consumer, right? Shut that down, you're just going to hurt the people of Iran, not the regime. Whereas I feel like oil is something that the regime target that, and it affects the regime far more than it affects the average everyday citizen. I don't know.
Now, I'm not saying that this isn't doable for the world's strongest navy. I'm just saying it's an investment.
But ultimately, you're going to need to monitor every one of those ports with ISR platforms, drones, Predator, and other aircraft that we flying overhead. But not just having eyes on the ports. You need to be able to have the capability to respond. That requires.
Can't you do this with satellites? Like we were looking this up. Find a port. This looks like it'll have a port. I know Karg Island has ports. Let's go Karg Island. Like, as a civilian, I can go in here and I can look at ships. Little boats. Bigger boats. Where do they load oil? Here we go. I mean, look at the size of that thing. Look at how much detail I can get. Does that have a helipad on it? You telling that the U.S. military's got better stuff than this? I don't know if you need drones. These are more oil tankers being fueled up. That pipe must get there under the water. Oil tankers. Why? Okay. Guess there's no point to see the sea out there. Oil rig. Well, like you can see, I don't think you need to have perfect vision of it. These are all oil. Oh, okay. I'm not using this taken. Anyway, like that's the way to do it.
Naval assets, everything from ships to frigates to helicopters and elsewhere. So that's going to be the challenge.
But then you have to ask the question, what happens when there's a point of contact?
When you blockade a strait, you basically threaten ships to stop. And if they don't stop, they would potentially be boarded or fired upon.
Any vessel that's going to try and break the blockade is going to face what's called the Visit Board Search and Seizure, VBSS operation, that can be carried out by the Naval Special Operations Forces that are trained for this.
So you have American forces stretched across a wider area, engaging not in black and white warfare, but in a potential series of encounters with lots of gray. An Iranian warship approaches. Maybe the US blows it out of the water. But what if it's a Russian or Chinese or Indian tanker?
Yeah, like that. Doesn't China, like most of Iran's oil goes to China. So I imagine Chinese tankers are carrying a lot of that oil. So what are you gonna do there?
Do you threaten? Do you attack? Do you board? And while that encounter plays out, what's Iran doing? Watching? Intervening?
There is a legal and geopolitical challenge if intercepting vessels linked to major powers like China. What is the United States going to do? Is it going to cease? It's going to be not letting these ships go. So that can lead to escalation beyond Iran. So the enforcement becomes selective and that creates loopholes.
But the other concern I've seen raised about this new chapter of the war against Iran in the Middle East is how this blockade represents a very open-ended commitment to putting American troops in harm's way.
Deployment orders are never specific. They're always open-ended. So that is unfortunately the reality, especially considering the fact that right now the U.S. Navy is the only one shouldering the burden to enforce this blockade on Iran right now.
There are no clear objectives. There are no desired outcomes that are specific, and they seem to be changing all the time. So in this,
You see, like this is the problem. I don't see 4D chess going on. I see something very reactionary. What is the long-term plan to remove the regime?
particular case, when you ask me how long will it last, I have no idea, because the administration does not have any idea.
The point here being that you don't just do a blockade in the same way that you do an airstrike. An airstrike has a predetermined endpoint. The strike happens, then it's over. Even a whole series of airstrikes can have a clear goal. Destroy these military bases, destroy these leadership compounds, destroy these bridges. But a blockade, you don't do a blockade, you maintain one. That's a 24/7 operation with military support, with mine-clearing operations, as Trump has explicitly called for now, and with no clear implicit success condition. Because when does the blockade end? It goes until something fundamentally changes at some unspecified future date, or it won't. Because what the Trump administration says it's waiting for is for Iran to abandon not just its nuclear program, but its nuclear ambition, something even J.D. Vance admits he only hopes will happen.
We have been at it now for 21 hours, and we've had a number of substantive discussions with the Iranians. That's the good news. The bad news is that we have not reached an agreement, and I think that's bad news for Iran much more than it's bad news for the United States of America.
Now,
I mean, I'd say that's bad news for the world, because that means the oil shock will not be resolved and shall continue.
Vance may be right on that count. The economic hit to Iran, if its oil tankers can't deliver oil, figures to be nearly 2 million barrels a day. At the fresh highs of over $100 US per barrel of oil on world markets, that's more than $100 million of product every day that isn't bringing foreign dollars into the country. But if Iran's oil stops getting out, that affects the global supply.
He's right. You put a blockade on it. So I imagine the reason they were allowing them to continue exporting is to try and mitigate the oil shock. And now that Iran isn't coming to the table for the negotiations, they just have to commit to a full blockade, which will act as a increased pressure on inflation and the oil price. The oil price and inflation.
And therefore the global price of oil. That'll get squeezed even further. The price of fuel, even as far away as North America, may very well go higher. And this blockade will be the most recent sign that despite weeks of attacks, assassinating Iran's leaders, bombing its defenses, destroying its infrastructure, that even on those dire terms, Iran refuses to give the US what it wants. Diplomacy has failed, and the war rages on.
I mean, like, that about sums it up. Diplomacy has failed, and the war rages on. Is there anything else? US-Iran talks in Pakistan, not a one-time event, but a process. Trump deletes depicting himself. I think I heard about that one. I actually want to watch that. I wanted images of the Strait of Hormuz because I really liked the one he showed. This way. Strait of Hormuz images. Right. Okay, so that's like an official CNN image. Yeah, like it's not as wide as you'd think it is. Off satellite. Separate from by. Yeah, so there's like marsh there. You can see how you kind of have to follow these deep lanes. So for a while in here, ship's position is very predictable. And that there's not exactly like a lot of navigating. Okay, well, I think that about sums up the current update on the war. It rages on. Let's on to the next one. Trump signs executive order restricting mail-in voting. Ooh, heard about this. He's still pushing really hard for voter ID. I think there was something else about that. Why are there so many people opposed to voter ID? Is there something else in the bill that they're trying to pass? I remember hearing somewhere that there was a discussion, and it was like it wasn't the voter ID element of the bill that was concerning to them, and it was something else that they were trying to like lump in with it and then pass through that was concerning to them. Okay, let's have a look. Let me finish this one first. Executive order restricting mail-in voting. Trump issued an executive order limiting voting practices, citing fraud concerns despite lack of supporting evidence as part of broader election-related action. This move could alter voting access and procedures ahead of future elections, sparking debates over election integrity and voter participation. Why is he targeting mail-in voting? Like, don't the Republicans get a lot of votes through mail-in voting as well? Is it primarily Democratic? Okay, I'll ask that after I read this. The debate over voter ID often feels confusing because in most polls, the majority of people say they support the concept of showing identification to vote. Yes, like I'm part of the majority. I support showing identification to vote. However, the current tensions specifically surrounding the SAVE Act, Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, being debated in the US Senate this month, is less about ID itself and more about the specific fine print in the bill. Something else you likely hear about isn't just about showing a driver's license at a polling station. It's about a massive shift in how people register to vote in the first place. Critics argue that this bill goes far beyond a simple show your ID rule. Here are the specific parts causing the most friction. Proof of citizenship versus photo ID. The bill requires documented proof of citizenship, like a passport or a birth certificate, just to register to vote. Currently, most states allow you to register by swearing an oath of citizenship under penalty of perjury. Opponents point out that roughly 21 million Americans do not have easy access to a birth certificate or passport, even if they have a standard driver's license. Ooh. So, the SAVE Act specifically requires you to show proof of citizenship, passport or birth certificate, to register to vote. And they expect 21 million Americans who are citizens not have easy access to birth certificates or passport. I have both for Canada. but needing to provide them, what it would do is it would disenfranchise 21 million Americans. So Trump is supporting this because the 21 million Americans vote more Democratic than Republican. I'm assuming that's the only thing that makes sense why you'd want to not have these people vote. And that's just hard. Like, if you have a driver's license, can't you look in your system and see, okay, this person is a citizen? Why do you specifically need a passport or birth certificate? A lot of people don't ever get a passport. A birth certificate is just a piece of paper you can use that easily. What I understand, getting a new one is a pain. Okay, let's continue. The DHS. I'm interested in this, right? Because Canada, specifically the Alberta referendum, it has a question about photo ID. So, do they want a driver's license? Or in their question, do they want a passport or birth certificate? Because these are two very different levels. Okay, the DHS data sharing clause. One of the most controversial hidden parts of the bill requires states to hand over their entire voter registration list to the Department of Homeland Security every quarter. Supporters say this is to purge non-citizens. Opponents call it a massive privacy violation and a move towards a federalized surveillance of voters. Purge non-citizens. So by data sharing, the Department of Homeland Security will have the ability to purge non-citizens. Like, the thing is, I really don't care about like the surveillance. If anything, like there needs to be more surveillance. I'd say. Like I've looked up some stuff about China and how they have like essentially a score for their citizens. It's basically like a large surveillance state. They move more and more there. Like 8 of the top 10 cities for having the most cameras are all Chinese. But like that is a power to like to give that to the Department of Homeland Security, which is isn't that a federal entity under the government? It's like giving the voter rolls or the ability to remove voters from being able to vote to the government that has an incentive to remove certain people from the voter rolls. Department of Homeland Security. Is the Department of Homeland Security an independent from the government, or do they take marching orders from the federal government? Let's see. Is a core part of the executive branch of the U.S. federal government. Okay, so it's just straight up core part. So yeah, it would be handing the ability to remove people from the voter rolls to the government, which is incentivized to remove specific people from the voter roll. That's dangerous. Follows the president's policy agenda. There are legal and structural guardrails designed to prevent it from being a purely political tool. Well, we know how Trump treats structural guardrails. Like, again, though, the whole voter ID, I largely support. There's these things hidden in there that are also part of the SAVE Act that are concerning for a democracy. The end of online/mail registration. I personally like mail-in voting. I would like online voting next. Let's make it easier. Why do I need to deal with paper? Surely I can prove who I am on an app. Vote there. That's what would make things easier for me. They appear to be going the other way, because the bill mandates that citizen documents be presented in person. It would effectively shut down online and mail-in registration systems used by over 40 states. It would also end third-party voter registration drives, those at churches or campuses, because those groups cannot legally handle your original birth certificate. Like, I'm all for checking if people are citizens when they vote, like having a voter ID and running their ID through database to ensure citizenship. All these extra things are voter suppression, in my opinion. All of this sounds like voter suppression. I generally lean the other way. Should be making things easier for people. Criminal liability for election workers. The bill introduces harsh criminal penalties, including up to 5 years in prison for election officials who register someone who doesn't have the exact paperwork required, even if a simple clerical error or the person is a legitimate citizen. Like, that's introducing a whole new level of consequence for what is usually a pretty low skill, easy job. And now if you make one little error, make a clerical error, you go to prison for 5 years. Okay? I mean, like, I would personally get a different job. I'm not going to prison for 5 years because someone handed me an illegitimate document. Why the opposition is so vocal? While supporters argue these measures are the only way to ensure only citizens vote, isn't non-citizen voting like an incredibly tiny problem? Despite non-citizen vote already being illegal and extremely rare. Okay, I just didn't read the next sentence. Opponents focus on the administrative hurdle factor. So it's already extremely rare. but because the general populace agrees that there should be some kind of identification while voting, they're trying to push through what looks to me like voter suppression with the ID. Because, like, showing an ID while voting, if you just got to show your driver's license, who cares? Right? Why is the opposite? Administrative hurdle factor. Married women, an estimated 69 million American women have a current legal name that does not match their birth certificate due to marriage. Under the new rules, they might need to produce a marriage license alongside their birth certificate just to register. So it's like, let's even target the women. Like 69 million American women, will just remove them from being able to vote subtly by giving them extra hurdles. The more I read about this, the more horrible it is now. These groups are the least likely to have, students and seniors, these groups are the least likely to have passports or current birth certificates on hand, potentially pricing them out of voter due to the fees and time required in order to order new documents. Oh, Canadian context. Been following the news closer to home, Canada also introduced the Strong and Free Election Act in March 2026. However, that bill is quite different. It focuses on banning AI deepfakes of politicians and tightening rules on funding rather than changing requirements, which are already standard for Canadian federal elections. I think I did have to give over, or at least show my ID when I voted last. It's not something I think of, but I think it was just like my health card and my driver's license both act as an ID. I always carry them with me. Not a problem for me. In short, most of the noise right now is because the current US bill isn't just asking for a driver's license, it's asking for a passport, a trip to a government office, and a new federal database to track it all. This is what's this called? The Save Act? Save Act, okay. Does it look like the Save Act is going to pass in Congress? How do I say it? There's something else I wanted to ask. I want to know why he's targeting mail-in votes. As of mid-April 2026, the Save America Act, the updated version of the original Save Act, faces an extreme uphill battle in the Senate and is unlikely to pass in its current form. While the bill passed the House in February 2026 with near total Republican support, it has hit a significant roadblock in the Senate. Here's the current state of play. The Senate math problem. The 60-vote hurdle. Republicans currently hold 53 seats in the Senate. To overcome a filibuster, okay, I have no idea what that is, and move the bill to a final vote, they need 60. How many? The Senate's like 100, right? So they require a supermajority to pass this? Democratic opposition. Senate Democrats remain unified against the bill, calling it anti-voter and a poll tax in disguise. Without at least 7 Democrat defectors, the bill cannot advance. So it doesn't look like it's going to pass. The presidential factor. Let's see. President Donald Trump has declared the SAVE Act his #1 legislative priority and has been aggressively lobbying Senate Republicans to bypass the filibuster. The nuclear option to pass it. Wait. So you have a filibuster. which means you need 60 votes, but you can just go around the filibuster? Why, if you can go around it, why would you not go around? Clearly, I'm missing some part of American politics and democracy here. However, Senate leadership has repeatedly stated they do not have the 50 votes necessary to change the filibuster rules. Oh, okay, so you need a certain number of votes to get rid of the filibuster, but you can't get that because that's like core aspect of the democracy. You need to be able to get 60 votes in order to get this passed, which means you need some people from the other side. And they're all against it. Trump has recently hinted at using executive action or new legal arguments to implement parts of the act, specifically the voter ID and citizenship verification portion, if Congress fails to act. Could he do that? As as you get close to the midterms, could he use an executive order to just force this through? And then even if it gets shut down, it'll take time for that to happen. Could enforce it for the voting period of the midterm. Even if it gets shut down afterwards, you'd get the effect you wanted, right? I wonder if we'll see that. If the bill fails this week, you will likely see the focus shift to the state level. Ooh, kind of like what he did with redistricting of the SAVE Act to implement documentary proof of citizenships for state level elections. Though these will inevitably face immediately challenges in federal court. Sure, it is a high profile performative fight. The bill is expected to fail in the Senate, but the debate will likely be the centerpiece of the 2026 election cycle. Interesting. So he's really pushing it. Again, I agree with showing ID. Canada already has that, from what I understand. But he's not talking about showing ID. He's talking about a trip to a government office so that you can sign up to vote with a passport or birth certificate. Sometimes, if you're a married woman, you might even need a marriage certificate in order to sign up to vote. And you can't do it online or by mail. That's a lot. It's a lot of hurdles to ask someone to jump through. He clearly thinks it'll favor his party, though. He's pushing it so hard. Let's. Ooh, I want to talk about. Okay, I'm getting distracted. Mail-in voting. There was something else that came up that I wanted to ask. No, not coming to me. Why is Trump so focused on mail-in voting? Don't the Republicans get a lot of votes by mail as well? Okay, you're spot on. It's a major point of debate within the party itself because Republicans do, in fact, rely heavily on mail-in voting. The focus on cutting back mail-in voting is a bit of a strategic tug-of-war between Trump's personal rhetoric and the reality of how his voters actually vote. The Republicans' reliance on mail. It is a common misconception that only Democrats vote by mail. In the 2024 election, approximately 24% of Republicans, nearly 1 in 4, cast their ballot by mail. In some specific states, these numbers are even higher. Okay, we're not going to go through the specific ones. Why the focus on slashing it? If it helps them, why attack it? Trump focus generally stems from 3 specific arguments. The chain of custody argument. Trump argues that once a ballot leaves a government office and enters the postal system, it is lost to supervision. He frequently cites ballot harvesting, where third parties collect and drop off ballots, as a primary security risk, even in states where it is legal. Chain of custody. So when you drop a ballot off a mailbox, or have someone collect it to drop off at a, he's worried it's like switched out for a different ballot, voting a different way, so it's not accurately recording the person's will. Like, is there a problem with that? From what I understand, it's very rare for someone to like try and change ballots. Like the most likely thing you'll have is someone that'll pick up ballots and then not send them. I don't know about that. Like, is there a problem there? Have we looked into it? Let's continue with what his issues are. The election night effect. Mail-in ballots often take longer to count, which leads to what's known as the blue shift, where Republicans might appear to be winning on election night only to see that lead vanish as mail-in ballots, which currently skew Democratic, are tallied during days. That's why. There. So even though 1 in 4 Republicans vote by mail, more Democrats vote by mail. Therefore, affect more Democrats by making it harder for them to vote by mail. I think I personally lean like we should have like internet voting. You can verify your identity in order to get into your bank account. Why can you not do this in order to vote? Technology's there to keep this secure. But when mail-in voting favors one side, the other side's going to target it. Purpose argues this create uncertainty, chaos. Guess what? If you let them vote online, count it instantly. Instantly. Like, you don't have to have anyone opening anything. Just count it instantly. Mobilization gap. Historically, Democrats have been more successful at using mail-in voting to lock in votes weeks before the election. Trump's team often feels that the longer the voting period, the more time the opposition has to turn out low propensity voters. The backfire concern. Many GOP strategists are currently worried that the Save American Act push to limit mail-in voting to only those with an excuse. Illness or military service could accidentally suppress their own turnout, but he's hoping it suppresses their turnout more. If mail-in voting is banned for everyone, GOP have to successfully move millions of their own mail-only seniors, rural voters back to physical poll lines on a single Tuesday. A massive logistical risk. Short, Trump is focusing on it because he views it as a source of fraud, a tactical disadvantage. Many in his party are quietly terrified that if he actually succeeds in banning it, he might end up cutting off a huge chunk of his own base. The chain of custody argument. Is there any evidence suggesting that this is an actual problem? Let's see, like, surely if he's coming out against this heavily, they've done research on it. The chain of custody argument is a central part of the current 2026 election debate, but there is a significant gap between the political claims and the empirical evidence. Here's the breakdown of the evidence versus the rhetoric as of April 2026. The claims. What is the problem? Critics, including the current Trump administration, argue that mail-in voting is inherently insecure because of the black box of transit, ballot harvesting, the dead letter risk. I'm not going to do that too much. I just want to know response, the evidence. What does the data show? Leading nonpartisan research institutions have consistently found that while mail-in voting technically has more touch points than in-person voting, systemic fraud is almost non-existent. The numbers: in the 2024 election, nearly 1/3 of voters used mail-in ballots. Documented cases of fraud remain in the low double digits nationwide. Low double digit. So a third, approximately 48 million, and cases of fraud are in low double digits. Like, that's a rounding error. That's someone making a mistake on their ballot, and then it being seen as fraud because they spelt their name wrong. And they spelt it the same as someone else's name. Statistically insignificant in the context of millions of voters. Security safeguards. Most states use invisible security measures that mitigate chain of custody risks, such as. Okay, well, is there a summary? In short, there is plenty of evidence that the process of mail-in voting is different and involves more steps, but there is no credible evidence suggesting that these steps are being successfully exploited to steal elections. Most experts argue the chain of custody problem is more about voter perception and trust than actual criminal activity. Like, I personally think you should be able to vote in mail. I personally think you should be able to vote online. That we should be trying to set that up. But I mean, that's my take on it. Is there anything else I wanted to ask? Okay. Well, I think I'm going to move on. Cut that. Perfect. Okay. Inflation spikes in March due to Iran war effects. I mean, like, this was always going to happen. Oil is incredibly inflationary. And one of the reasons why inflation has actually been low recently is because of a lower oil price. That's not good. If inflation spikes, bring inflation down, what you have to do is raise interest rates. Something tells me Trump will lose a gasket if if the Fed tries to raise rates, because he is pushing for rates to go down. That'll be interesting. U.S. inflation saw its biggest increase since 2024, driven by war-related disruptions, tariffs, and energy price volatility from the Iran conflict. Something different. Water check. Do you talk? Do you talk to me? Let me check. Always. I hear that the US is experiencing high inflation. Is there any indication that the Fed may raise interest rates?
I'll search for the latest information on this since inflation and Fed policy move pretty quickly. Yeah, so the situation's actually shifted pretty dramatically. Just a few weeks ago, the Fed was signaling rate cuts this year, but now more officials are openly talking about possible hikes instead. The recent Iran war and rising oil prices have reignited inflation concerns, and there's a growing group of policymakers who think rates might need to go up, not down.
I don't know how I feel about it reading to me. Like, the whole voice to text I really like. But the text to voice, like I read at a different rate that she speaks. So, but it from what they're saying, it could have to go up, maybe. Rate hikes will cause problems. Lots of problems. I'm going to move on because that's going to be a continuous story for the next. However long the war goes, however long that goes on, we're going to be talking about interest rates. That's simple. All right, let's look at some global and international news. Is Hungary here? Yes, this is the one I've written down. Look at that. Okay. Look at this. Israel continues offense in Lebanon despite US-Iran ceasefire. Didn't that like collapse the ceasefire? The whole Iran said that Lebanon included the ceasefire, and the US said that Lebanon wasn't included in the ceasefire. Here it's been ratcheting up recently. Israel strikes in Lebanon persist, with death toll rising from attacks targeting Hezbollah, even as the broader US-Iran truce took effect. US officials urge scaling back. Ongoing regional violence risks undermining the fragile ceasefire and broader Middle East stability. Well, ceasefire is pretty much fucked. Is the US currently bombing Iran? Like, have they gone back to dropping bombs yet? Or are they still... Technically, the US and Iran are currently under a temporary 2-week ceasefire that began as of April 8, 2026. However, the situation is extremely fragile, and a full naval blockade of Iran was announced by Trump. So they are not bombing. While the heavy bombing campaigns seen in February and March have largely paused, there are reports of localized strikes and ceasefire violations. They're not wide-scale bombing. Let's see if the news has anything. So cheer first for it. Yeah, the Lebanon side of the war doesn't get nearly as much. Stand-up comedy? I don't think that's what we're looking for. Israel expands. Ooh, that's probably a good one. If not Gaza, then Iran, then Lebanon. Hundreds of Israelis protest Netanyahu's Middle East war. Yeah. Israel is a democracy. Aren't there elections coming up? Is he going to try and use the war as an excuse to, like, put off the elections? Because it doesn't seem particularly popular among his people. Is there a better part? Hospital. I don't know if I can even. I mean, I guess if it's on YouTube, it's safe, right? The whole I can't show this on YouTube. That doesn't make sense if it's on YouTube. X is good for this kind of. Right? Lebanon. Pause that. It took the Israeli Air Force less than 10 minutes to take out over 300 Hezbollah terrorists hiding in Lebanon and places where they thought they were untouchable.
طلعت رفاعي هون طلعت رفاعي بربور.
That's just destruction. Breaking. Israel's dropping white phosphorus bombs on civilian areas. Internationally banned munitions. Israel is using them against civilians. The issue is with this, like, I have no idea how to verify these things. In the current war between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon, how many civilians have been affected? How many have been killed? And how many Hezbollah fighters have died?
The situation is really dire, Alex. Over 2,000 people have been killed in the conflict that started in early March, though the numbers vary by source. The overwhelming majority are civilians in Lebanon, including over 200 women and children. On April 8th alone, Israel launched massive strikes that killed around 300 to 350 people in what was described as one of the deadliest single days. As for Hezbollah fighters, reports from late March suggested over 400 had been killed, but I don't have more current figures than that, and those numbers are likely higher given the escalation since.
I mean, like, that is. If you have 2,000 deaths, 400 fighters killed. Well, I mean, that's what? 20% accuracy? What happened to Israel being able to shoot, bomb, and kill someone, kill like a general in their house? A 20% accuracy, like that's pretty indiscriminate. Like what's happening there right now is terrible. Beirut. If Israel insists on destroying civilian targets in Lebanon, let them buy and build their own weapons. American taxpayers should not be funding this. Something about that feels off to me. That's not how buildings fall. Maybe I'm wrong. Why every time I go on X, it's like, is this AI? Is this trying to lie to me? This is horror in real time. The moment Israel started dropping bombs on civilian areas in Lebanon, but anymore, Israel dropped 160 bombs in the first minute alone, massacring over 250 civilians, a dozen of them children. Well, I mean, I don't know if I can show that. Like, try this one. It doesn't go into more information when I speak to it. Is Hezbollah in Lebanon being propped up or supported by the Iran government?
I'll search for current information on Iran's support for Hezbollah. Yeah, absolutely. Iran is essentially propping up Hezbollah. The US State Department says Iran provides most of Hezbollah's funding, training, weapons, and explosives. Estimates suggest Iran gives between $100 to $200 million a year to the group, though they've shipped billions over the decades. During this current conflict, Iran's Revolutionary Guards actually rebuilt Hezbollah's military command structure after Israel damaged it in 2024, even plugging gaps with Iranian officers. So, Hezbollah is very much Iran's proxy in Lebanon.
That's rough. Like, the Lebanese people are essentially being occupied, right? Let me see. I don't really like it reading. Let's try this one. Chat GPT. Hezbollah, Lebanon. What do the people of Lebanon think about Hezbollah? Like, is there any kind of opinion poll or something you can show me? Because from what I understand, like, they did have a degree of support. Like, this wasn't, like, I wanted to say occupying force earlier, but that's not really true. It was, they had decent public relations, you know, until the war started. Short answer. Lebanese opinion on Hezbollah is very divided, but overall, recent polling shows more opposition than support, especially outside its core base. Here's a clear breakdown using real survey data. What opinion polls say? Most Lebanese don't want Hezbollah to be armed. I mean, I understand that. 2025 Gallup poll found that most Lebanese say only the national army should have weapons, not groups like Hezbollah. Even among Shia Muslims, Hezbollah's main base, about 25% support banning weapons for non-state actors. That's a big deal because it shows cracks even within its traditional supporters. Many Lebanese oppose Hezbollah's overall. Some analyze of polling indicates the vast majority of Lebanese already oppose Hezbollah. 2024 survey found 55% had no trust at all in Hezbollah. So maybe my initial look at it as an occupying power is closer to the truth. Like that's the issue when it comes to Iran. There's so many things like this. Like they are funding an occupation in another country. They do this in Lebanon. They've done this in the Gaza Strip, and they do this with the Houthis. Destabilizing every region. They essentially send money and guns to a region to destabilize it. To horrible effects. Like if Hezbollah didn't have arms, there wouldn't currently be a war in Lebanon. Support is highly sectarian, split by religion. Lebanon is very divided among sectarian lines, and views on Hezbollah reflect that. Shia Muslims, strong support. Sunni Muslim, Christian, Druze, mostly negative views. Example polling, only 69% of Christians / Sunni express strong support. Around 85% of Shias express trust in Hezbollah. So Hezbollah is popular within one community, but unpopular nationally. Most people don't want war, which affects views on Hezbollah. About 86% of Lebanese oppose military conflict with Israel. Polls also now support for disarming Hezbollah is common. Hezbollah is heavily involved in conflicts. This hurts its public support. So what support it did have is going down because it's in an active conflict with Israel. Okay, what's going on behind these numbers? Recent trends. Many Lebanese blame Hezbollah for dragging the country into wars. There's growing anger that it acts like a state within a state. I've heard that one before. The Lebanese government itself has even moved to restrict or ban its military activity. The Lebanese government, the Hezbollah, because of how much support they get from Iran, Hezbollah is actually very well armed comparatively. Like they're, from my opinion, like kind of equal. And so if there's a conflict, will basically turn into a civil war because it's likely to get dragged out. One wants to see that. At the same time, Hezbollah still has real support, especially among Shia communities. Some still see it as a resistance force against Israel. There's so many conflicts. Like Like this conflict largely exists because Iran is providing the support to Hezbollah. Like Iran is the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world. When the war started, right? Here. Like nobody, I don't know if I can play music. Nobody's comfortable. The conflict is horrible. How do we stop it? Fundamentally, what you wanted to do was stop Iran from funding them for the past decade. But you can't go back and change that. Hey, let me see. How many fighters does Hezbollah have? Like, don't they have like tens of thousands? Yeah. So 40 to 50,000 fighters. And when we talked earlier, what, 400 were killed? Active fighters plus reserve. So 20 to 30,000 active. And so far in the conflict, they've killed 400, which means I see what, like 50x destruction if you want to completely remove them. There's no way. It would look like Gaza. Because everything is laid to waste. I mean, like, I hope there can be a peace deal between the US and Iran. That can stop this war as well. And in the peace deal, you make it clear they can't fund proxy militias. And then if their investment dries up, eventually their support will dry up as well. That's the best way out of this that I see. That requires Iran agreeing to a ceasefire with those terms. Right now, they seem pretty set on just waiting this out. All right. Well, I'm going to move on. I'm going to keep trying to talk about the Lebanese side of the war because I feel the Iran side gets a lot of attention and what's happening in Lebanon gets significantly less. I don't know how much I can actually show. Oh, I had something pulled up, that's right. Israel attacks Lebanon. This is from DTV. I don't know that one.
Israel's war in Lebanon is now raising fresh global concern.
Like, remember, if they want to remove Hezbollah, you're looking at like a 50 to 100x the destruction. that we're seeing.
with reports emerging of entire villages being wiped out, homes allegedly rigged with explosives and detonated in coordinated blasts. According to reports, the Israeli military demolished villages by rigging homes with explosives and detonating them in large-scale remote-controlled explosions. Videos posted by the Israeli military and circulated on social media shows mass detonations in the border villages of Lebanon. Israel claims the strikes are targeting Hezbollah infrastructure, but conflicting reports say civilian homes are being flattened without clear necessity. Lebanese media outlets have also reported similar mass detonations in additional border villages. Reports suggest recent Israeli strikes in South Lebanon killed 18 people, which brought the total death count in Lebanon to more than 2,000. International media claims Israel's defense minister called for destruction of all houses in the border villages, similar to Israel's approach in Gaza. The offensive is part of a broader push to create a buffer zone along the Lebanon border. Even as the humanitarian toll mounts with thousands killed and displaced, and amid a fragile regional truce, these visuals are now fueling outrage and raising serious questions over the cost of this escalating conflict. Bureau Report for NDTV.
I don't see anyone backing down from this escalation, which is concerning. Great. Well, I'm gonna keep touching on that, but let's go back to news. See what else we got. Hungary's election. Ooh, I heard about this. There's a big change in Hungary. Orban's long rule. Prime Minister Viktor Orban concedes defeat in Hungary's election, potentially shifting the country's political landscape after 16 years in power. The outcome could realign Europe in union dynamics, migration policies, and relations. The U.S. allies like. All right, we'll find some. Okay. Which Canada brought. Let's see what we got here. Hungary's Orban concedes full election. All right, well, that looks good. Let's have a look.
And here again is a look at Budapest, where the celebrations are taking place. Hungarians who voted for change are the ones celebrating this time. They're also celebrating the defeat of longtime Prime Minister Viktor Orban. Opposition leader Peter Magyar appears to have won decisively. Let's get...
So, Hungary is southwest of Ukraine. They have a part of their border that's actually connected. And Hungary has Orban has actually largely leaned towards Putin's side. It's like kept relations and meetings with Putin despite the ongoing conflict. So he's been voted out by, let's see, what was the margin like? In the Hungarian election, how did the polling end up? Okay. see, was it a huge, or was he sneak through? So Orban got 39.1% of the votes. The new guy, Peter Magyar, got 52.4% of the vote. Turnout was very high. Ooh, that's huge. Highest in decades. Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna grab a drink. This one I come right back. Oh, give me a second. Oh. All right. Where were we? Peter Magyar. So he won by a significant margin. That is not it's not a small margin, and definitely got a majority of the votes. Let's have a watch.
To CBC's Briar Stewart, who is in Budapest with the excitement behind her. So, Briar, set the stage. What's going on where you are?
Yeah, you know, Natasha, there are tens of thousands of people here, and they keep coming and coming. And we actually had to leave the location that we were at along the Danube in front of the Parliament building because there was just no cell phone signal. All of these people here tonight are jubilant because they have voted in the election and they have voted to bring down the government of Viktor Orban. He'd been in power in Hungary for 16 years. During that time, people who are critics of him say that he tilted the country in the wrong direction. There was centralization of power, corruption, scandals, erosion of rights, and really what we heard from a lot of people is that they were very uncomfortable with Hungary's and Orban's relationship with the Kremlin, and what they wanted to see is a government that tilted more towards Europe and improved the fractious relationship there. Now I'm going to just step a little bit to the side here so you can kind of see a little bit of the scene behind me. And you know, you have a man here with Orban and Matryoshka doll, and underneath you have Putin. And it's not an overstatement to say that Russia factors very, very heavily in this election. After Orban officially conceded, I mean, the crowd was cheering, and one of the things they were chanting was "Russia, go away." So definitely it is a.
you just know that man has been doing this all night long. And look at him. He's still happy to keep doing it.
Factor, and so has Ukraine been a factor in this election. Orban tried to make it one, saying that a vote for anybody but him might lead to the country being dragged into the Ukraine war. That was the narrative that Orban tried to sell.
What? But like, he supports the aggressor. Is Hungary in NATO? Yes, Hungary is a member of NATO. Okay. Like, you can't get dragged into the war then without the whole alliance getting dragged into the war. That's the point of the alliance. That's why Ukraine wanted into the alliance. Like, I know Trump's been coming up and putting a lot of pressure on NATO. As far as I understand, Article 5, like, it still stands.
Obviously, not enough voters went for it, and now we are going to see a new government in Hungary. And I think the question is just, will that government be able to promise or deliver the change that it promised? Because a lot of the people here tonight really, didn't really know much about the opposition in terms of the vision it was articulating.
Like, Hungary is a pretty big country, right? What's the population of Hungary and what's the population of Ukraine? Because Ukraine is definitely like it's got a large land mass compared to Hungary. Okay, so there is a significant. Hungary is 9.6 million people. I'm just gonna pull it up on a map. Hungary map. So there we go. So we got Ukraine, Russia up here with their conflict, Hungary here. And they got a border. Not a large border. So just under 10 million. Probably mostly in Budapest. That looks like a huge city.
What they really wanted to do was to vote against Orban and end that government, and that now has happened.
Breyer, there was some concern amongst a few that even if these results would come to fruition, that Orban wouldn't necessarily immediately recognize them, but that doesn't seem to be the case. What are you hearing?
No, yeah, and there had been, I'd say, accusations all throughout the campaign of vote buying. The Orban campaign was doing that. There were hundreds of election monitors deployed across the country, both domestic observers and those from international teams. And, speaking with political analysts over the last couple of days, they said, well, there's always kind of these claims about electoral fraud. They didn't think it would lead to kind of a serious inquiry or a recount, if you will. And I think that's quite evident now that we saw Orban officially concede, congratulate Peter Madar, who will be the next prime minister of this country.
Peter Megara? Is that how she said it? I mean, I'm trying to figure out how to say his last name.
This country, so just congratulate Peter Madar, who will be the next prime minister of this.
I don't think she knows how to say his name either. I don't think I should use that.
This country, so despite the accusations around fraud, it doesn't really seem to be a factor here. I should say what will be very interesting is to just see what this new government is like. It's been 16 years of the Orban government. It will take a long time, political watchers say, to try to deconstruct some of the changes that were made, stacking of the judiciary. So much of the media in this country is either directly controlled by or affiliated with Orban's Fidesz party. These kinds of things can't be changed overnight, but those here really do believe that this is a part of a new beginning.
And I should note, Breyer, Europe's Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen, has put out a statement where she's saying Europe's heart is beating stronger in Hungary tonight. And certainly we're hearing those hearts beating stronger in Hungary. Thank you so much for being on the ground for us in Budapest and for this live report.
Okay. Why is it in the sidebar? It's struggling. It's really struggling. Times. Okay, there we go.
Western alienation. You turn that.
Just start playing another. I mean, yeah. That. Let's see. I wanted to know, what are the two different parties called? You had Orban and Peter. No, that's not what I wanted to click.
Hi, glad to meet you. I think we're going to do great.
Okay. Don't know what you're doing. They'll start again. In the Hungarian election, what were the main points where Peter and Orban differed in their campaigning? All right, that should do it. Here's a clear comparison of where Peter Magyar and Viktor Orban differed in their campaigning during the 2026 Hungarian election. Overall themes and message. Peter focused on restoring democratic norms, anti-corruption reforms, and good governance after 16 years of Fred's. He campaigned on restoring judicial independence, press freedom, unfreezing EU funds by rebuilding trust with the European Union, emphasized day-to-day quality of life issues, placed pro-EU orientation at the center of his campaign. Orban campaigned primarily on security narratives, portraying himself as a leader who can protect Hungary from external threats. Like typical strongman stuff, right? Relied heavily on nationalist and populist messaging, sticking to long-standing Fidesz's themes of sovereignty, cultural identity, and resistance to foreign pressure. His campaign also leaned based narratives about external influence and instability. Okay, so This guy sounds better to me. Already. I don't think we're going to go through all of it. But it sounds like Hungary's taking a turn. I mean, I'm hopeful. I didn't realize or their current leader, Viktor Orban, was going so heavily in one direction, say. All right, let's continue. Cut this. Artemis 2 mission successfully returns crew to Earth. Yeah, we watched that. That was great. The first since Apollo completed its lunar journey with a safe splashdown. Welcome officials and families. Looking forward to the ones coming up. Oh, upcoming important events. Let's see. U.S.-Iran peace talks resume or further deadlines. Following weekend talks in Pakistan that ended without a full agreement, announcement indicated potential resumption or U.S. consideration of limited strike/blockade enforcement in coming days. Outcome could determine escalation risks, oil prices, global energy security in the near term. Alberta separatist referendum legal process continues. Court hearings of First Nation injunctions against the Alberta independent petitions are set to proceed, with potential decisions impacting any referendum timelines. I mean, like, I don't see separation happening, but I don't see the problem with having some kind of referendum on it. Why it matters, resolution could accelerate or halt provincial separation efforts affecting Canada's federal provincial relations. Okay. Ongoing monitoring of Strait of Hormuz blockade enforcement. U.S. announcements detailed the Strait. Start of a naval blockade measure targeting our ports be 13th today, with updates expected on compliance and shipping impacts. Immediate effects on global trade and energy flows could emerge within days. Let's have a quick look, see if there's anything underreported. Have a look at potential lithium discovered under Alberta attracts attention. Ooh. Reports highlighted a significant lithium resource potentially buried under Alberta with exploration implications for Canada's critical minerals. Lithium is one of the primary components for lithium-ion batteries, which is basically currently the best way we can store energy. This could position Alberta as a key player in electric vehicle battery supply chains. Economic diversity beyond oil. That would be good. I think we should look into that. Prairie harm reduction service face closures with community impacts. Closures of harm reduction. Oh, I remember hearing about this. Closure of harm reduction programs in Saskatchewan and prairie regions drew local reactions, with leaders noting immediate effects on vulnerable populations. Reduced services risk increasing public health challenges, opium and substance issues, with limited nationwide coverage. Oh. I want to look at that. Private colleges in U.S. at risk of closure amid financial pressures. Oh, well, that's the first I've heard of this. Projections show more than a quarter of U.S. private colleges face closure risk due to declining enrollment and cost. Why it matters. Widespread closures could limit higher education access, regional economies, little mainstream focus. Okay, Key trend summary. The past 3 days were dominated by gradual de-escalation efforts in the U.S.-Iran conflict alongside persistent regional flashpoints. While domestic political shifts in Canada, Alberta tension, Quebec leadership, and the U.S. voting and economic policies reflect broader concerns over unity, security, and economic stability amid global energy volatility and exploration advances. Okay, so I want to see if we can find something about harm reduction. Prairie harm reduction. Two years ago. 2 years. Yeah, okay. I mean, if it wasn't a 44, oh, it's one of those things where they post the whole news segment, and at this point, 23 minutes in and 13 seconds, you see a 5-minute clip. And some reason that's what it's called. Can we get a shorter one? CB very harm reduction shuts down. Just the clip. We're back to 4 years. Let's see if we can find it. Give it a shot.
Mixed emotions. Why not everyone feels Saskatoon's supervised consumption site should have stayed open. Split on sentencing. Why the Crown and Defence are open.
A rally on the weekend highlighted concerns following the closure of Prairie Harm Reduction.
We must not give up.
But some business owners say the safe consumption site's closure offers an opportunity for the community to move forward with a more balanced approach to addictions issues.
You know, safe consumption is just a part of harm reduction. And our position has always been that harm reduction must include protection for vulnerable individuals and protection for the community. So public health and public safety must be balanced.
PHR closed its doors last week after the organization shared that it was suffering from significant financial issues. Its exemption was then suspended, executive director fired, and operations of all services ceased. This wasn't just a loss of service.
Like, I've never liked the idea of supervised consumption. It just, that doesn't seem to me how you would tackle the problem of addiction. The whole idea is to move people off of substances, right? Why do you essentially assist them with the consumption of the substances when your job is to get them off the substances? I feel there's better ways to do it. Like, you could argue that this gives you access to the individual who have the issue coming into a consumption site, and then you can get services that assist them in getting off the drug. Provide them with services, but there are other ways without providing them a place to do the drugs that you do this. I don't know. I don't think funding should go for that. I'm someone that's like, when you trying to reduce drug addiction, look at supply. Where's the supply coming from? How can we reduce supply? Because there's almost no way to affect demand. But you can affect supply. That's where you put your efforts in mind.
It was a loss of relationship, trust, and the continuity of care that cannot easily be replaced.
In addition to its role as a safe consumption site, PHR provided 2 youth homes, educational services, and family supports. The executive
So, like that, those are the additional programs. Try to get them in there, and then you put them into the additional programs system with getting off. The additional programs should be pretty good. But the safe consumption side, I don't.
Director of the Riversdale Business Improvement District says, while many of these services are important, one community does not have the bandwidth to provide all of them.
I can say with every bit of confidence that there's no NIMBYism in Riversdale because we have more than any other neighborhood in the city, and in some cases combined. So when we're looking at distribution of social agencies where people already live, Riversdale's full, and we're looking to bring a balance back to the area.
According to the province, other outreach groups within Saskatoon are expected to absorb the increased demand in services caused by PHR's closure.
Well, I think what we see going on in Saskatoon will probably be a transition of services to other community-based organizations, so those individuals will just be getting their services elsewhere.
Shabailo says there's a need for these services, but they should be more evenly distributed across the city, and other neighborhoods outside of Riversdale should have more services for vulnerable people.
But there are no services readily available where those folks already live. So we're looking to say, can we not do this better to focus on the clients and their needs as opposed to the agencies and the resources they have?
Hallie Mandrick, CTV News, Saskatoon.
Meanwhile, the Ministry of Health has issued another overdose alert for Saskatoon. It says between April 1st and the 12th, the Saskatoon Fire Department has responded to more than 150 overdose calls. It says multiple calls involve more than one person in need of help. The ministry says it's not known what kind of drugs.
Yeah, I got no idea how often the calls are. Okay, well, I think that gives us a. So even if it faces closure, they're closing one facility and they have other programs in place to pick up that demand. All right, private colleges in the U.S. at risk of closure. So Canada had an something similar recently happened as well. We have tried to limit the amount of students that come over on visas. And from what I understand, what they put into place was far more effective than they had predicted at limiting people coming over. So this is cut down. As people would come over on a visa, but they pay their tuition. It's cut down tuition significantly for specific colleges that are now having issues. But I haven't heard any that were on the verge of collapse. Why don't we look in it, see if Canada has this issue? So I hear that students that get visas that come over to Canadian universities has been reduced recently. Are any of the universities' finances being severely affected? Are any universities or colleges struggling financially? Because of this. Ooh, okay, yes, recent cuts to international student visas and other challenges to Canadian international students programs have had real financial effects on Canadian post-secondary institutions. In some cases, severe strain, especially for colleges and some universities. the current situation. What changed with international student visas? The federal government sharply reduced the number of new study permits issued in some periods by around 90% compared to the cap. As part of broader immigration policy changes, these limit additional restrictions like provincial attestation requirements have led to a big drop in international student arrivals across Canada. International students are historically paid significantly higher tuition than domestic students, and these fees became a major revenue source for many schools, especially for colleges and smaller universities. So, from my understanding, you would get accepted to like a Canadian university. You would have to pay, if you were outside the country, you'd have to pay a significantly higher price than someone inside the country. But it was kind of like the first step in like citizenship. Go to the university, then you would get a job and get a worker's visa. If you'd been in Canada for your schooling and job and after work a couple of years, that's when you could like get a citizenship. So it was kind of like a first step. So people were willing to pay significantly more because it was essentially like getting your foot in the door. What I understand, the US works largely the same way. Colleges hit hardest, some already in crisis. The most concrete financial pressure has been seen in Ontario's colleges. International students once made up a large share of enrollment. Loyalist College and Northern College have faced major financial challenges due to steep drops in international enrollment triggered by caps on study permit and changes to post-graduation work permits eligibility. So they've changed a bunch of things. So even the postgraduate work permits have been changed. At least 14 Ontario colleges have undertaken major reviews, cut staff and programs, or taken other cost-saving measures because of losses tied to international students. Okay, universities are also feeling the squeeze. Many Canadian universities have experienced a decline in international student revenue, forcing them to tighten budgets. Leaders from universities such as the University of Saskatchewan have publicly warned that fewer international students have significant reduction in tuition revenue, which puts strain on financial sustainability. University Canada and other representatives say enrollment and revenues drop exceed expectations, contributing to broader financial headaches. While a large research-intensive university still attracts substantial domestic and graduate student numbers, many smaller or mid-sized institutions rely more heavily on higher international fees. Those schools are more vulnerable to revenue shortfalls. Okay, so let's just get to the bottom. Yes, some colleges and potentially smaller universities are already struggling financially because of reduced international student numbers. Ontario's college system shows the clearest evidence of severe budget stress, major cuts and financial restructuring under. Large universities are also feeling the impact, though they have broader revenue streams, research funding. So it doesn't sound like it's that significant. You change the laws and how many students can come in, it's going to change revenue, and then you got to change programs and you got to adjust. Private colleges in the different mess. Carolina private universities closing down due to financial issues. I hear that U.S. colleges are also facing financial pressure. What is the cause of this pressure? What's the major factors affecting their revenue? Like I assume that it's from less people, right? But for us, we've specifically cut down the amount of student we bring in internationally. Same thing happened? Or has university and college costs in the US just gotten so high that it has become inefficient to go to university because of the financial stress it puts? Let's see. U.S. colleges and universities are indeed under significant financial pressure, and it stems from a mix of long-term structural shifts and more recent policy and demographic changes. These pressures are affecting revenue, costs, and the viability of some institutions, especially smaller ones. All right, let's look at the factors. Declining enrollment. Lower overall student enrollment due in part to long-term demographic trends like falling birth rates means fewer tuition dollars coming in U.S. higher education enrollment is projected to decline significantly through the 2030s, reducing a core revenue stream for institutions. I mean, yeah, less people going to college, and you got less money. I imagine Canada facing a very similar trend. Fall 2025 data shows a notable drop in new international students. New enrollment down about 17% to visa restrictions and other barriers. So they're doing the exact same thing we're doing. That translates into billions in lost tuition revenue. International students often pay full tuition and contribute more to spending on housing and other campus services. If anything, we're doing more restrictions. International students are roughly 6% of total U.S. enrollment, but contribute a disproportionate share of revenue, especially at research universities and graduate programs. Drops hit budgets hard. Reduced government funding. State support for public colleges and universities has declined in many states over the last decade, forcing institutions to rely more on tuition. When enrollment falls, this creates a funding gap that can't easily be closed without raising tuition or cutting programs. Rising costs and operational pressure, financial uneven impact by institutional type. Many smaller liberal arts or specialized institutions have been closing or merging because they simply can't attract enough students to cover costs. Liberal arts. Like, how are they ever profitable? Mid-size and regional public universities. Okay, well, there's a whole bunch of reasons. Close some of these. All right, well, I think we got through all the news. That's great. What did I want to talk about next? Sure. How long? Half hours. We can do something else. What on my list that I want to look up? Action. I want to know how the Australia social media ban is going. I'm interested in how the Australian social media ban is going. What are the effects it's having? Is there any negative or positive aspects? Can you possibly provide me with a video link that explains this clearly? I want to assume it got it right. Social media. Okay, let's see what it gets. Oh. Ooh, we got statistics. Going through statistics. This is why I like using AI. No! 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 Ugh! I put it into my... I would put it into my project. Still got my news search project. New chat. There we go. Now it'll find the right answer. It looked like it was doing all the research and then just went back to doing whatever I had the project set to do. I click. Don't want to. Okay. Let it finish. Did Australia's social...
I wasn't banned from Snapchat, TikTok, or Instagram, and none of my friends were. When the ban...
Did it work? I wasn't banned from anything, and none of my friends were. Sounds like it didn't work. I wanna watch something longer. We're gonna watch this because that was great.
I wasn't banned from Snapchat, TikTok.
What happened to my sound?
I wasn't banned from Snapchat, TikTok, or Instagram, and none of my friends were.
When the ban came, I got kicked off social media. It allowed me to see the clarity in how social media actually wasn't very important for my life.
I've made friendships with a lot more people who don't have it because I can relate to not having it as well.
I was not impacted by the social media ban. So I still use Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat. Of my year group, which is there is about 170 to 180 girls, I know of exactly 3 who were impacted.
That's a bad ratio.
Received notifications that there would be checks and that they would verify our age. However, I did not lose my account.
On TikTok, I just got a notification that said like the terms and conditions had changed. And it just said like, click OK. And I clicked that and it was A-OK.
My parents were very...
Said like, click OK. Terms and
15 years old. What age group were they targeting? Because if you're 15, like isn't it like an under 16? Close to that line, maybe.
Conditions had changed.
As strict.
And it just said like, click OK. And I clicked that and it was A-OK.
My parents were very restrictive about social media, so I didn't have any. But I thought this ban would make it more equal because other people wouldn't have social media, but it didn't really work for a lot of people.
So it didn't really work for a lot of people. Yeah, under 16 social media. I wanna look at results. Here we go. ITV. I don't recognize. I don't trust CNN. Let's just see if I something that's better. We're gonna try this IT. Let's see how they do.
Really beg the UK government not to make the same mistake that Australia has. The content still remains today. The creators of content remains today. It's really embarrassing to see my government celebrating such a fail.
Saying no.
It's sad to see him celebrating such a failure.
You can't do something, and forcefully taking that away without giving them much choice really just makes people want to do it more.
Cyberbullying, that was always a concern of mine, so yeah, I'm all for the ban.
14-year-old Evie showed us what happens when she tries to get into Snapchat.
Her account's been locked.
She's been able to get around the ban on other platforms and says it hasn't changed her social media habits.
Saying no, you can't.
I mean, I'm gonna bring it up. How? Those nails? I mean, I have a phone. My nails get slightly long. It's a pain. I keep my nails short. It's a pain to operate the phone. Any kind of nail. How do you live like this? This seems terrible to me. All right, let's get back to the point.
Habits.
Saying no, you can't do something, and forcefully taking that away without giving them much choice really just makes people want to do it more and realize what they had. So I think that the idea that people will be outside more if their social media accounts get banned is slightly delusional.
You know what I think we should do? We should create a government social media platform where you have to essentially log into it through government ID. Like I think we should be building like a government ID system. You'd have to use that to log into it, and that way, like everything there's so many places like Roblox where there's just no adult supervision, where there really should be some kind of adult supervision. You don't allow your kids to just go to a park and just do whatever they want all day, but you allow them to go on Roblox and talk to whoever, do whatever all day. And problems come up, and you need a system to handle the problem. And Roblox system to handle the problem is to ignore the problems. Sue anyone who talks about the problem. And that's just not how we should be handling it. Like, I want to see if I can find a clip. How's best to find? I'm looking for a specific clip. There was an individual talking to a group of children about the game Roblox and asking them questions about if they've ever been asked to do something in exchange for the in-game currency. Can you try and find this clip for me? Let's see what it gets.
December 10th.
We're gonna go back to it. Because I remember watching it, and it was like, has anyone ever been asked to do something like they were uncomfortable with in exchange for Robux? And like all of the hands went. That's scary. Like that is a place that should have supervision. You have money, you have kids, and you have no supervision. It's gonna go bad. No, there's no way it's not going to go bad. Yes, I believe I did that clip specifically. You're describing. Okay, okay. Can you show me the clip? I don't know if this is the clip.
Social media platforms, gaming platforms.
Predators who have transported children hundreds of miles away to.
I don't know if I want to watch a 20-minute documentary on it. I too want to see if I can find that clip. Okay. It's from school-based online safety session run by Kira Pendergast, founder CEO of Safe on Social. She regularly visits elementary schools and speaks directly to a group of children. This sounds like it, about Roblox risks. In these sessions, she asks questions like, who's playing Roblox? Okay. Yeah. Where to see it or closest public view. Unfortunately, the full raw video of her live school sessions with the kids isn't publicly released for child privacy and consent reasons. However, most detailed public descriptions. Kira regularly shares short video snippets here. If we're going to be able to find it. It's probably here. Let's see. I just can. I mean, we should probably watch this. This looks like a good. Oh, am I allowed to watch? Oh, let me see. She also appears in news segments where I know her name. Maybe it's better if I use the name of her organization. School-based safety session found Safe on Social. Let's see if I can get next clip. Social. Are either of these it? I'm way too far off course for the actual clip. We're gonna go through this, and then we might watch this. Or we might watch this another day. Let's continue. Either way, like, the fact is that social media, basically an unsupervised place where children interact, and honestly, like, if it was children interacting with children, it wouldn't be that bad. The problem is it's largely become an unsupervised place where children interact with adults. Like, there should be accountability and supervision there. continue.
Australia became the first country to ban under 16s from several major social media platforms. 15-year-old Noah Jones has decided to take the government to court.
If they really wanted to protect people from the bad content, not just under 16s, they should have gotten rid of the bad content. They should have put...
Like, the difference is that children, like, there's an age where you are old enough to make the decision to drink. We created that, that's law. If you're under that age, we consider you not fully formed as a human enough to be able to make that decision. So I think the goal is, like with drinking, just to make it so that there is an age before you can become a part of social media and have that interaction. Because I think it is damaging for many youth. You know, I'm going to bring up one of my favorite charts stuff. Like, you know what uncontrolled access to social media has done to our youth? We are 71st in youth happiness. Like, that is not good. That is really bad. I think we had a drop of, like, because it's on like a 10-point scale, of like a whole point from the last one in youth happiness. Over a point. Clearly, uncontrolled access of social media for young people has a negative impact on their happiness. I'm not saying that's all the reason. There's a lot of reasons for that number to go down. I think social media is one of them. Now, taking something away will have just been allowed to use. Like, that's hard. It's hard. I don't know how you're gonna get a lot of people that react negatively. A lot of people react negatively. And I don't know. I don't know how you fix that. But either you take it away, which, I mean, would suck, or you create some kind of government-backed social media, kind of like how when I was young, you know, a lot of what we did was like watch kids channels on TV, but children's content on TV is highly regulated by the government to ensure quality and things like that. And nowadays, children have like just access to TikTok and YouTube, and there's no regulation for children's content that can really stick. And I think that's having some negative impacts, because there really should be some regulations in children's content. Like, I think we can all agree to that. And how you enforce that, like, when I was a kid, there just wasn't another option. Social media wasn't an option. But I think you can't just take it away. Like, I think you got to give them another option where there is some kind of supervision. This is somewhere where you can interact with people your age, because I think interacting with people your age through the internet is important, especially if you interact with them in real life and then online. Like I think that's important. But a place where like you can see problems before they happen, and not like Roblox, which tries to cover up problems and pretend problems don't happen. All right. Let's continue.
All that money and resources into actually fixing the problems on social media.
With the support of his mother, he's challenging what they say is a rushed and ineffective piece of legislation.
I mean, it does seem rushed and ineffective.
I would really beg the UK government not to make the same mistake that Australia has. The content still remains today. The creators of content remains today. It's really embarrassing to see my government celebrating such a fail.
The Australian government says almost 5 million accounts have been deactivated, hailing that as an early sign of success.
Like you can hear the nails tapping. Oh, that hurts. I could not stand that.
Success. Julie Inman Grant has been the driving force behind the ban and is consulting with the UK. The US Congress has accused her of censorship overreach. She told us there is more to come.
In 2 months, we will have some standards coming in that will require AI companions and chatbots to prevent under 18s from.
I mean, like, I think AI companions are just going to destroy us all, personally. Allowing that technology in any capacity, and it will eventually just end humanity. I am a pro AI regulation. I don't want to stop the development of AI because like it's gonna do so much good, but it can also do so much bad. And if you don't regulate it, you will get the bad with the good. And I would rather avoid the bad, just personally. But I mean, that's why you see these AI companies now and social media companies cozying up to the president of the US, right? They wanna avoid getting regulated. That would be terrible for them.
Receiving any prompts that encourage suicidal ideation, self-harm, disordered eating, violence, or
I mean, like, don't they already do that? How would I prompt it? How do I make a suicide prompt? I don't want it. And have this remember and be like, oh, this guy might be suicide. No. But I think they're getting better on that. I think there was a pretty big push. But I mean, pushing harder against stuff like that, fine. I mean, that should be a regulation.
Explicit pornography.
So what we've seen so far is actually just the beginning of the restrictions.
Yep. It's just
like, wasn't Grok just making nude images of people a while back? I guess I can't go to Grok to ask that one. Grok had an issue where its image generator was creating nude deepfakes of. Have they fixed that? Grok. Oh, they got it. It understands me. The issue with Grok AI and non-consensual deepfakes has been one of the biggest tech scandals of early 2026. Several fixes. The consensus from cybersecurity researchers as of mid-April 2026 is that the problem is partially mitigated but not fully solved. Here's the current state of affairs. Let's just get to the summary. The bottom line, it's much harder to generate that kind of harmful content now than it was in January, but it's still a cat and mouse game. I mean, everything's still a cat and mouse game. XAI has tightened the leash, but the architecture of the model makes it very difficult to eliminate the possibility entirely. Can I? Okay, I keep talking. Let's finish this.
It's the beginning.
It's hard to see why you'd want to be on your phone during Australia's summer holidays. In the sunshine at Sydney's Manly Beach, we conducted our own unscientific survey of the ban's success.
You've accidentally been following a bit of a social media ban yourself.
Yeah, you could say I have been. Like, in the past couple of weeks, my screen time's gone from like 8 hours down to like 3 hours, which I'm still trying to get that down to like 2 or 1.
Cyberbullying.
8 to 3? That a day or a week? Like how bad was it?
Bullying. That's something that I've sort of built into Indy from a really young age to be resilient about, and that was always a concern of mine. So yeah, I'm all for the ban.
It hasn't been much of an effect. You just can't comment on videos anymore.
Do you think it's a good thing, the ban?
Yeah, but it's like, if it's like, it's just too old, the ban. It should be like younger.
You know, we're pretty much better.
How do you do this properly? Like, it sounds like Australia, this is stage 1, and they're bringing in new stages. Which, I mean, from my understanding, Roblox wasn't even banned in stage 1 for under 16s. It's the worst one, in my personal opinion. But if they're gonna keep ratcheting it up, like, maybe it'll actually have some effects.
At the UK at everything, so what you probably should follow suit, yeah. Don't mention the cricket, sorry.
The jury may still be out in Australia, but British teenagers are braced for a social media ban that could soon be coming their way. Debbie Edward, ITV News, Sydney.
I mean, I think having some restrictions, certainly, for kids. Like I said, we have a restriction for alcohol. Alcohol is considered dangerous. You have to be a certain age before you can use it. You'd say social media is dangerous for your mental health. A certain age before you can do it makes sense. I also think that there's like benefits you can get from social media. So creating almost like a phone for people under 16, which has limitations. I think might be more appropriate, because taking away the phone, I don't think is ever going to happen. The ability to contact your child is important. But then to not have that phone, be able to just access all the social media, entirety of the internet, would be nice. So I don't know. I'll probably keep an eye on it, because it may start spreading to other countries. Social media ban, and if we're gonna do it, got to do it right. You got to get the good effects. I might watch this one. I think I'm gonna watch this. Save. Was I here? Let's just have a quick look. Positive aspects. What question again? effects it's having. Let's see what it says. Reduced exposure for many kids. Millions of accounts gone means less automatic access to addictive feeds, harmful content, cyberbullying, and online predators for a large group of children. The government and e-safety commissioner have called it a step towards giving kids their childhood. Okay. Empowering parents. Many parents report it makes it easier to say no to younger kids wanting accounts. Oh, that's a side of it I never thought of. When you push this societally, it empowers parents to prevent their children from accessing this content. So, not only are you pushing for like a legal change, you're pushing for a societal change. Some teams adapt positively. Okay. Freer, less distracted, more offline time with friends and family. Reduce bullying for those who have lost access. Broader cultural shifts. High public support. It has prompted global discussions. I think we do need something like this. I would be part of the public support. Let's ensure if we're gonna do it, we do it right. Can allow certain, like, when you think social media, most people don't think Roblox. But I would consider Roblox a social media site. You have to make sure you're solving the problem. It's an entirety if you're gonna do it. Long-term potential. By delaying access until 16, it may help during the most vulnerable adolescence years, which is what you would want to do, based on mental health research linking heavy early social media use issues with anxiety, depression, and body image issues. In the social media ban in Australia for those under 16s, was the platform Roblox banned? Is there intentions to ban it in the future? Okay, where were we? Let's look at the negatives. Enforcement is leaky. Yep. Many teens report bypassing via fake birthdays, workaround, or no age checks at all. Some platform systems still let kids through. No quick drop in harms. Cyberbullying complaints have fallen noticeably. Some kids have shifted to unregulated spaces. Okay, cyberbullying complaints haven't fallen noticeably. Some kids have shifted to unregulated. That's a problem, right? Like, what do you do about Discord? And sites like that, where it's just like chat sites. There's even less overview of what happens there. A social media account. So you don't want to push, like, you almost have to create the alternative. Kids are going to keep using these things. If you make a space where you essentially can act like a supervisor, there is supervision, even if it's like an AI looking for trends, trying to identify, going through all messages and trying to identify problematic situations. That would be better than what they currently have. Potential downside for vulnerable groups. Critics argue it can isolate rural, disabled, LGBTQ+, marginalized teen who rely on online communities for support and connection. That's always happened then. Platform pushback and privacy concerns. Tech companies say it's hard to enforce perfectly without invasive ID checks. What do you think's coming next? I think invasive ID checks. I brought it up earlier that there should be some kind of government ID for you in the digital space. There should be certain things that require you to use your government ID to log into. The bots are going to win. Online, the bots are going to win. It's all just going to be robots talking to you. Unless there is some kind of invasive ID check that proves you're human and gets you access. In which case you can keep all the bots out. So, like, it's going to happen. I think they're behind the curve on where they should be here, but I don't think there's any stopping that. Age verification methods have accuracy issues near the 16 threshold. I think we've seen that. Like a bunch of the kids in that one clip were 15. Like, oh, nothing changed for me. Well, you're close enough to the threshold that it just gets you through. I think. Mixed teen experiences. While some feel freer, others say it didn't really change anything or cut off from friends. A Sydney school visited by BBC found most students who used social media before the ban still had access. Like, it's certainly not perfect. They're taking baby steps, I think. Overall, it's early days. The law is unwinding decades of easy access and full effects on mental health behavior. Platform design will take longer to measure. The regulators view it as progress, but stresses platforms need to do better while technology is fix on its own. Yep. Okay. I want to know. No, Roblox was not banned in Australia. The law, which took effect on December, applies to designated age-restricted social media platforms. Roblox is explicitly classified by the eSafety Commission as a gaming platform rather than a social media platform. It falls under legislative exclusions for online games. So if you put your social media platform, put it inside of a video game, and you're good. You can get by. Maybe that's a problem. Is there plans? Are there intentions to ban or include Roblox? No. So, game of cat and mouse continues. Doesn't look like the cat's doing a very good job. Well, at least it's a step. Alright, well, I think I'm going to get off. Okay, thanks for watching. Hope you have a good day, good night, and I'll probably, the goal is now, I'm going to try and get on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. There's a lot of things I want to look into next. I need to get some kind of background noise. Why? Streamers always have background noise, but it is undeniably effective. So that's what I'm going to look up next. And I also want to find a way to get on TikTok. All right. Well, have a good night.